In 2019, I met my new primary healthcare provider, Dr. Heather O'Neill, at Fort Smith VA Clinic. During my visit, I asked if I could have a few x-rays taken of my head, familial meningioma given as the reason. O'Neill scheduled the procedure for January 29, 2019. After completing the procedure, I awaited the images to be posted to my online VA medical record, and once they were, I downloaded them and began looking through them. Amid surprise when I found O'Neill's CT scan was nearly 400 images and not the mere few x-rays I'd requested. Though the radiology report's conclusion stated all is normal, I began going through the images looking for specific kinds of anomalies. It wouldn't take long to begin coming across single CT scan slices that were, to be conservative, shocking, making the radiology report as suspicious as I knew it would be. You'd agree the images you're seeing would never be classed as normal, but would instead motivate a physician to have the patient immediately scheduled further focused imaging to identify the objects for continued diagnosis. Biopsy might be recommended from these images alone. Dr. O'Neill wasn't motivated to these expected normal avenues, but quite the opposite. I requested imaging from O'Neill seeking evidence not of possible tumours but of possible crimes. Dr. Damani's radiology report mentions nothing of these most glaring, frightening objects found within the CT series images. I took the most alarming of the images and sent them via email to Dr. O'Neill's team. The initial response was empathetic. Team member Don responded he understood my concern and would get the image to his boss, O'Neill. This obviously means he saw the image and was motivated by it to involve the doctor quickly. As our conversation continues, I note that Don begins to lightly question what I've sent him, why I sent it, and on whose professional advice I had sent it. This is obvious pushback from O'Neill. Don then states he was having trouble viewing the images because they were dark in his print-up. His only reason for now claiming he'd never really got a good look at the images after offering tepid condolences in his initial emails was obviously to create a defense, and that he never saw anything. Dr. O'Neill's office manager steps in to eventually inform that O'Neill is ending any further discussion, and that the doctor and I can speak about it during my next checkup in a year. If the disturbing objects found in the CT scan images she herself ordered were indeed fast-growing tumours, she might have to conduct my next checkup with her via Ouija board. But she knows what they are, and has quelled any further discussion about it between her office and myself. And though the crimes that inspired my imaging request to O'Neill in the first place is starting to bear fruit, I would have to endeavour to become familiar with medical imaging, including creating 3D models from large CT scan series, like the one O'Neill gave me. Dr. Damani's radiology report is a complete fabrication that concludes, quote, all normal, unquote. Dr. O'Neill will only ever parrot the conclusion and absolutely nothing more. The evidence I was hoping to find via medical imaging of my head bore new kind of fruit I hadn't expected. This evidence consists of Dr. Damani's omission of the most startling items found in the imaging, while he goes on at length describing only the mundane. Dr. O'Neill has only ever, to this day, parroted Damani's report's conclusion as all normal. My sending the images to her team members caused her to intervene immediately and quash any further discussion of them between her, office employees, and myself. These two, Damani and O'Neill, are corrupt, both serving the same criminal enterprise that inspired me to make the imaging request of O'Neill to begin with. I asked T for a few x-rays of my head. She gave me hundreds within a CT series. She did this not for a fulsome view of my skull and brain for diagnosis on my behalf, but surely for her criminal bosses who wanted an updated view of their handiwork's effects on tissue and bone. The video playing now was derived via 3D modelling, via application used normally by radiologists. Learning how to work with medical imaging, I was finally able to begin revealing what I had been searching for all along. Most in law enforcement would assign the onset of otherwise unexplainable auditory experiences to some sudden mental break. I knew I was looking for a real-world answer based in technology that already existed and was being used by the medical industry, and after great effort, I finally uncovered them using Dr. O'Neill's CT scan series images by having 3D modelling programs stitch those images together, providing an all-encompassing picture no single X-ray image could. Cochlear devices which, as you can see, I found while Dr. Damani did not. One would think these implants, located far away from their normal placement, along with bands of wires anchored to both sides of my skull's interior by cranioplasty hardware, would have made Damani's report. This type of dual cochlear arrangement is for binaural effect and achieved with the exact type of internal skull tunneling and wiring layout you're seeing now. While the wiring is inside the skull, the implants are mounted on the exterior of the temples. To hide them from medical imaging, they were apparently covered over with surgical bone cement, which is known to be Radiopac. This led me to look for them from the inside of my skull. Source imaging courtesy of Dr. O'Neill. Once I found the cochlear implants mounted upon my temples and created defined media of them for law enforcement, I moved on to try and create evidence of the neural array, the bulk of whose components lay situated down the middle of my brain inside the protective dura mater. This proved substantially harder than the work done to expose the cochlear devices. I had noted the DICOM index file for the CT scan had been manually altered, causing some imaging function to suffer, though I repaired some of the purposeful damage. What I ended up with is imaging that shows components and its wiring, but most of all, that the three dense objects easily seen in the single X-ray images are simply components of the neural array. So now this narrative must jump back before I began coaxing the visible details of implants and their support systems out of the images Dr. O'Neill handed me. After O'Neill ended all communications with me, and once I realized Dr. Damani worked, and always has, at Washington State University in Seattle, I wrote a 10-page report and sent it to U.S. Attorney Kara Jenner via email. No response. Several times more, and no response. I printed the letter and report, complete with print-ups of the medical imaging, sent it to her in the mail. No response. Once again, a month later, and finally she emailed me. Ms. Jenner claimed to have read my missive to her and assured me she would request OIG look at it. Finally, a chance at a government agency, OIG, assessing the details of my report and possibly opening an investigation. I considered myself lucky. 7 months later, I was contacted by OIG Special Agent Chris Raper, who, in his introductory message to me, claimed he'd been involved with my case for quote, unquote, the past few months. His email excited me, making me feel as though my case had gotten traction. If he'd been involved in my case for a few months, he must have been turning up evidence. In March of 2021, I took a spill and thought I'd broken a rib. I went to Baptist ER for x-rays. No broken rib, but torn ribcage muscle. Far more important finds in the x-ray copies I'd taken home. 2 of the 5 single x-rays displayed a new find, a pacemaker with a large attached device with a square base and round raised center. Since I had no idea my body held a pacemaker or its supporting hardware and wiring, I immediately sent the images to Agent Raper and Ms. Jenner. No reply. While working with the chest x-rays, I managed to strip away part of the upper layer on one of the images. I knew what it was when I saw its round chamber. A very large induction coil used to recharge the pacemaker's battery using magnetic field energy, just as today's cell phones wirelessly recharge. Raper spoke of having 4 radiologists give their diagnosis of O'Neill's same CT series to see how many agreed with my assessment against how many did not. I suggested a far simpler idea. Take me down to the hospital and have me imaged head to toe in a high-definition CT scan and put to bed any doubt either way. Over a year since U.S. Attorney Jenner informed she had requested OIG open an investigation into my case, I found myself contacting Raper more often, always knowing I would come away from those conversations convinced Raper had been corrupted if he wasn't from the outset. That no radiologist in any VA facility in Arkansas was selected to write the report, but instead, Damani, who lived in Seattle, was chosen stands out as odd. There are 2 VA hospitals in Arkansas that have fulsome, large radiology departments with the same ability to diagnose and pen reports just as Damani. I kept reminding Raper of this thread upon which he should pull. Instead, he sent me an email full of statements that not only make no sense but conflict with one another. At the height of my continued suggestion that the selection of Damani should be seen as odd, suspicious, abnormal, Raper sends me an email. His opening sentence, quote, OIG Criminal Investigations has looked into your allegations, unquote. The use of looked in the past tense makes it sound as if they've finished looking into my case, yet he doesn't inform of any conclusion. He then suggests I submit my allegations to OIG via their online hotline, when the man formally informed me nearly half a year prior he'd been working on my case for several months. The lunacy in his email goes on. He next states the OIG portal connects to physicians who look into medical negligence as if anyone between myself, Jenner, and he himself ever said a single word about negligence. This case has always been about physicians who work in the VA today, O'Neill and Damani, who have been enlisted by the criminal enterprise that planned and carried out implanting a physiological data streaming system into my body at West Los Angeles Medical Center long ago in May 1999. O'Neill has seen the images from her own CT series. I made sure Damani had seen the images as well, since it's likely he's the go-to radiologist when criminals require him to fabricate a radiology report, and he may never have bothered looking the O'Neill CT scan. And when I found the rechargeable pacemaker system in my chest among ER X-rays in early 2021, I sent those images to O'Neill, Raper and Jenner as well. And now, all of them have become criminals. Raper's email above goes on to state he's opening up further avenues of information he's awaiting answers on, which conflicts with his opening statement that OIG has looked into my case. By this point, we can all understand that neither of his statements are true. A month later, I happened to run a document data comparative program on a previous version of my VA medical record against one I had downloaded that day. A single result arose from someone performing an alteration to my record. A quite important and, to be sure, prescient one. Someone had changed the name of my primary care physician from Dr. O'Neill to Dr. Damani. I immediately clipped images from the records and sent them in an email to Raper, and blind copied Jenner. Raper's answer was faster than the usual answer he gave me, which was no answer. He stated he was requesting an answer to my concerns, and that he would contact me as soon as he had an answer. He never contacted me again. After I came to terms that Raper was most likely corrupted before he'd ever written me his introductory email, I would later believe that since he and I had just gone through a period in which I insisted an answer to Damani's involvement in my procedure could not make sense if anyone was pressed about it. I believe Raper had my medical record altered momentarily so he could document it in whatever kind of report he was putting together regarding my case. If you asked Raper for his report on my case, my guess is this alteration would be within it. About a year and a half since Kyra Jenner's email to me. Raper stopped answering my phone calls, emails. When I did finally get him to accidentally answer my call, he chided me for publicly painting him as corrupt. I assured him I never painted him as corrupt. I stated outright he was corrupt, as if he believed I felt real life were like some kind of CSI television show. He told me he was off the case and ended our call by saying he would give me his replacement's phone number but not his name. When I called the number, it only ever rang. No answer, no answering service, no automated operator, only ever ringing. It took me many days over months to finally call at a time Kyra Jenner absent-mindedly picked up my phone call. This was nearly 2 years after her only communication with me, her email response to the report I mailed her. This phone call illustrates she knows who I am, knows about my case, and understands I'm looking for an update on OIG's investigation, which she has self-requested. See if you agree.
You have reached the office of the United States Attorney for the Western District of Arkansas. Normal business hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you know your party's 5-digit extension, please dial it now.
Here, Jenner speaking.
Hi, Mrs. Jenner. It's Matt Sutherland.
Yes, Mr. Sutherland.
Are you good? How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Are you busy?
Yes, but what can I do to help you, sir?
Oh, I was wondering about the investigation of Raper's. I didn't know if it had closed or continued. He said somebody else took it over.
Okay, I actually don't know whether it is being continued or closed, to be honest with you. And I wish I could give you the exact nomenclature on that. Can I get back to you on that?
Of course.
What would be the best way to proceed from here?
Well, you can contact me by email or by phone, and I'll answer if you call.
Okay, and I do believe I have your email, unless it possibly has changed. Is it the same as some of the things you have sent me in the past?
Yes. Did I bother you too much?
No, not all,
Okay.
Mr. Sutherland, but please just dictate it to me again, just to make sure I don't have a misunderstanding, because I've seen a couple different things come, and I don't know if they all come from the same email address.
Oh, I think so. It's Mellock Films 2016 at outlook.com.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will give you a response in writing so I don't make a mistake.
Okay.
Misunderstand the status. Okay, thank you for calling.
Thanks very much.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Jenner never contacted me via email as she promised. No phone call either. So after many tedious hours of calling her at her office only to leave voicemails that would go unanswered, I called later than business hours one night, and she picked up. Now, here for you is the second of the only 2 times this person and I ever spoke.
You have reached the office of the United States Attorney for the Western District of Arkansas. Normal business hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you know your party's 5-digit extension, please dial it now.
This is Kara Jenner speaking.
Hi, Kara. It's Matt Sutherland. One more time.
Okay.
Oh, I hate to bother you. Do you know if there's a report from OIG or a summary or something?
I do not think so, Matt.
Okay.
I don't have one, and I did not see one.
Okay. Can I request one from them or?
Well, certainly, Matt. You can request. I just don't know that there is one that has been available or been made available. But
Right.
I think their investigation has concluded.
Okay. All right. I was just checking.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
You
Bye
too.
now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
System overview. This X-ray was taken in Baptist's ER in search of a broken rib. The physician found none. What I found in the series of 5 images from Baptist was an assembly including what appears to be a Medtronic pacemaker with a device mounted directly on top of it. Springing from this assembly are a raft of wires, some of which lead up the neck into the skull and some which lead down into different segments of my spinal cord. Removing part of the DICOM image's uppermost layer reveals a system whose main components are what appears to be a Medtronic pacemaker with a large induction coil attached directly to the pacer. This coil recharges the pacemaker's battery via magnetic field induction. Something all new medical implants are outfitted with. Medtronic holds a patent on this super fun-sized induction coil which my investigation has concluded was never sold as a product by Medtronic in the market since patients claimed they were frightened for their lives by having a steering wheel implanted into their chest. This graphic comes from the Medtronic patent for the induction coil. In the depiction the coil, sans a pacemaker power source, uses external magnetic field energy to send power to the deep brain stimulation rods. He looks at ease, most likely because he's never researched Medtronic's history which is replete with recalls. Dr. O'Neill's 400-image CT scan holds half a dozen images that show dense, highly reflective objects. They exist in the falx cerebri fold in the front and middle regions. Using contrast adjustments to the original images yielded evidence of these objects being surrounded by apparent man-made objects. When viewing this same region as 3D models it became clear that the objects aren't just surrounded by electronics and wiring, they are part of an assembly that runs the length of the falx cerebri. Trying to pull a focused view of this system from O'Neill's scan was impossible, enough of it can be seen to understand its complexity and size. The large, dense, probably metal, object at the front of the falx cerebri can clearly be seen as a component of the assembly. This object can clearly be seen inside a channel form fitted to it and attached at its base. In this 3D model cutaway I highlighted what I felt the most clear parts of the assembly, though there is more to it. I requested a few X-rays of my head during my first visit with Dr. O'Neill. She ordered a nearly 400-image CT scan. I wanted these images to search for answers to what I had been experiencing. I knew I was looking for cochlear implants, and after months of working with the images I found 2 cochlear implants, each mounted to my temples. The first implant I found was in a 3D model from the CT scan. I could make out the implant's shape, along with its choke coil in the upper left corner, but couldn't produce a defined view. My surmise is that these devices were under surgical bone cement, to keep them hidden from radiography. After realizing I couldn't push past the bone cement cloak, I moved into the skull for a view of these implants from inside. The 3D model clearly shows the cochlear implants mounted to the outer temples, both with runs of wires affixed to the inner walls of the skull. Both sets of wires are mounted to the skull using cranioplasty anchoring hardware. The two sets of wires run up to the apex of the skull where they join together in a hardware component. This type of cochlear implantation is called a binaural installation for stereoscopic hearing. The sets of wiring mounted up the sides of my skull are typical for binaural implantation. I found an informational graphic that details how the wiring sets are to be tunneled inside the skull and around the brain to the top of the skull where they join together in a common system controller. The closest implanted system that resembles the one in my body is the Connexus BCI system from Paradromics. The Connexus system has a power plant with its recharging induction coil built into it. A conduit of wires is anchored upon the vertebrae, then enters the skull where it connects to a neural data array that consists of multiple sensor heads that plug directly into the brain. The only thing the Connexus system is missing when compared to mine is the capability to receive an RF signal that's sent to cochlear devices and into the auditory system as sound. This slide of Paradromics' product describes the power supply and induction coil combo unit as also housing an RF transceiver for two-way radio communication. Spring 1999 saw whistleblowers coming forward to report rampant corruption amongst physicians inside the West Los Angeles VA Medical Center. Reports of physicians giving patients untested heart medication and telling them they were vitamins that must be taken, at the behest of their criminal partners and pharmaceutical corporations. Veterans were keeling over in the parking lot. One veteran reported his cardiac physician asked if he would take part in a collection of data from his heart, which required a sensor device to be placed inside his heart. The veteran stated he didn't want to participate. When the veteran woke up too soon during a procedure, he found the physician leaning over him with the data collection device placed inside his heart. In April 1999, West LA VA had all clinical trials and human experimentation halted until an investigation into how corrupt those running the system had become. 1 month later, I wandered into that hospital for knee surgery that would require an overnight stay at the hospital. The day after that surgery, I hobbled out into the parking lot on crutches, not knowing I was leaving that place with far more parts than I'd gone in with. It would take over a decade to make this discovery.